Well, I got a quick question though on that Psalms 110.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, we can do.
I always was under the impression that was like somebody prophesying, almost seeing a vision of Yeshua, right? Because when you were saying that, when it says that you'll be a high priest forever under the order of Melchizedek, but of course when you were just talking a little while ago, you were saying that this was actually David, right?
According to the context there, yes.
See, I thought that too. I thought it was a prophecy about Christ as well. But then, like, our Old Testament only, he was like, that's not even David talking. That's his servant talking.
Exactly.
So
and
I had
this,
to go back again and read it again. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not to say it doesn't apply to Hamashiach. It does. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Wasn't David the order of Aaron?
Say that one more time.
Wasn't David the priesthood under the order of Aaron still?
David? No. David, the priesthood after the order of Aaron was from the lineage of the Levites. David was from Judah. So Judah was not a priesthood, right? It was the Levites was the priesthood. So Aaron and his sons, the Most High used Moshe to induct them into the priesthood or to initiate the Levite priesthood. David, on the other hand, is from the tribe of Judah, right? So the tribe of Judah had nothing to do with the priesthood prior to us seeing a priesthood situation involving a king, right? Because the Levites couldn't rule on the throne.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's why I brought you to Zechariah chapter 6, because if something's being bestowed upon David and then later on being echoed in the Brit Hadashah of the New Testament, we have to see justification for this in the Tanakh. And that's why I bring you to Zechariah chapter 6, where it shows us that the branch, who is a descendant from the line of David, is going to build the temple. He's going to sit and rule on a throne, and he's also going to be a priest, and at the same time have peace amongst the two offices. But we got to see the precedent. Well, where did this precedent get set that a king from Judah can also be a priest? We see it here through the induction of David in Psalm 110. So that means that now the order of Melchizedek has been taken from wherever it was at, and it was transferred to the line of Judah. So now we have a priesthood that's running alongside Levi, because guess what? The Levitic priesthood is not a forever priesthood. It's going to cease at some point because the temple is destroyed. When the temple is destroyed and we're scattered, we're not going to know who's Levi and who's not. So there has to be some other kind of contingency plan, right, that will continue to cover the children of Israel until the Most High comes about. And I'm going to show you an example of that. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 33. If Miriam was from the line of Judah, some people say that she was like half Levite, right, because they make a inference that Elizabeth, her cousin, was a Levite. And we know that Yachanan, or John the Baptist's father, was working the temple in the inner sanctuary. You can't go inside the temple unless you're a Levite. You can work on an inner court and outer court, but once you go into the most holy and holies to burn the incense, that's in the most holy, you have to be a Levite. Otherwise, you're going to drop dead, right? Or you got to be some kind of priest that the Most High honors, like David went and ate the showbread and he didn't drop dead. So there had to be a reason why the Most High allowed David to do that and not kill him, because he's showing us an example that we missed it. Like before Yahusha came, we just missed that. We didn't know why that happened. Why is he going to, why did he live? Yahusha brought that up because he's trying to bring things to remember to see people will get it, and they still wasn't getting it, right? So if we go to Jeremiah chapter 33, there's going to be something very, very important here that the Most High says in regards to the throne of David. Let's go to verse. Somebody can read verse 11.
Chapter 33.
Yes.
Sis, you gonna read?
I can read. Can we read? I'll read. The voice of joy, the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride, the voice of them that shall say, Praise the Most High of hosts, for the El is good, his mercy endureth forever, and of them that shall bring the sacrifice of praise into the house of the Most High, don't cause the return. Oh no,
you had it. Go ahead, Al.
For I will cause to return sacrifice of praise into the house of Yah.
I will cause it to return. Keep going.
For I will cause to return the captivity of the land as at the first, saith the Most High. Thus saith the Most High of hosts. Again, in this place, which is desolate, without man, and without beast, and in all the cities thereof shall be an habitation of shepherds causing their flocks.
Shall be a habitation of shepherds who rest their flocks. Keep in mind this term shepherd. Remember, David was a shepherd. Yahusha says, my sheep know my voice. He said that he is the shepherd. Keep in mind these things, right? This is very important in solving this mystery. Now, I want you to please, somebody else, to go to verse 14. And we're going to read that down to verse 18.
I read. Behold, the days come, said the Most High, that I will perform that good thing which I have promised unto the house of Israel and to the house of Judah. In those days and in that time will I cause the branch of righteousness to grow up unto David.
Wait, hold on. I will get a branch. Remember we talked about the branch and where? Zechariah chapter 6. So we know that whoever that branch is, we know that it has to do with David. Okay, keep reading. Keep reading.
I will cause the branch of righteousness to grow up unto David, and he shall execute judgment and righteousness in the land.
Okay,
in those days shall Judah be saved, and Jerusalem shall dwell safely. And in the name wherewith she shall be called, the Lord our righteousness.
Now read verse 17 and 18 slow.
For thus saith the Lord,
what?
David shall never want a man. David shall never want a man to sit upon the throne of the house of Israel.
David shall never lack. That word want that she said means lack a man sitting on the throne. That will never happen, the Most High says. There will never be a lack from somebody from the lineage of David sit on the throne. So let's not get it twisted that somebody else can be a king. You have to be from the lineage of David, and that person is the branch that the Most High is going to raise unto David. This is why when people say that David is going to be the Messiah, how can that be when the Most High is going to raise a branch unto David? No, it can't be. He's raising something unto David or towards David. It's not David. Okay, keep reading. Keep reading.
Neither shall the priests, the Levites, want a man before me to offer burnt offerings and to kindle meat offerings and to do sacrifice continually.
Now slow down. David shall never have a man, right? Never lack anybody sitting on the throne of the house of Israel, and the priest shall never lack a man before the Most High, offering burnt offerings, burning grain offerings, and preparing sacrifices continually. The Most High, read verse 19 and 20. Look how deep this is. Read verse 19 and 20.
And the word of the Lord came unto Jeremiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, if you can break my covenant of the day and my covenant of the night, and that there shall not be day and night in their season, then may also my covenant be broken with David my servant, that he should not have a son to reign upon his throne, and with the Levites, the priests, and with the Levites, the priests, my ministers.
Now you'll hear some people tell you about the curse of Joachim, right? Saying that Yahusha cannot be a valid successor because there's a curse on the lineage of Joachim, right? And what they tend to miss is the word signet, right? signet is mentioned there, as well as mentioned in Haggai chapter 2. A signet. That's very important when we understand that. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because now the Most High is saying, if y'all can break my covenant with the day and night, which means he's the one that's in charge and establishing orders when it's day and when it's night. No man can break that covenant. Who is greater than the Creator that can break the covenant? Nobody. So he's saying, this is how definite I am about what I'm saying to you. He said, neither will my covenant be broken with David, my servant, so that he will not have a son. Not David ruling, a son. At this point, David is dead. He's long gone. So remember, this person who's going to be raised up is not David himself. It is somebody from his loins. A son to reign on the throne, and with the Levitical priests, my ministers. As the host of heaven cannot be counted, and the sand of sea cannot be measured, so I will multiply the descendants of David, my servant, and the Levites who minister unto me. So now, if we see a situation where the Most High is saying the branch who's going to be the son of David is going to reign forever, and it's always going to be somebody reigning, that means somebody has to occupy that throne. It has to be occupied by somebody. And it's going to be that way continually. And then somebody got to bring offerings before the Most High continuously. But if the Most High knows that Israel is going to be destroyed in 70 AD, then that means he obviously cannot be referring literally to the people who are there at that time. Some other people or person or thing that can actually take the place of the Levites and of the kingship of David has to be the one doing both offices continuously forever until the consummation of time. Now, John the Baptist, his father was a Levite, which would make John a what?
Levite. A Levite.
And John immersed who? Who did John immerse? Who did he baptize?
Yahusha. Yahshua.
What is a mikvah in Hebrew? Does anybody know what a mikvah is in Hebrew?
A priest. What did you say?
A mikvah, M-I-K-V-E-H. That's how we transcribe it in English. A mikvah. A mikvah was a ceremonial washing or immersion into water that a priest had to undergo before he went and took his temple duties. And before Aaron became a priest and his sons, they had to be consecrated by water. They had to be initiated into a priesthood. Wow. I think some of y'all missed it. So when we look at Yahusha and Yachanan comes to him, he says, I have to be baptized by you. You don't understand. He's like, nah, man, yo, bro, you got to baptize me. He said, listen, man, if you don't do this, you're going to mess the whole game up. It must be done. Why? Because now the Levitical priesthood has now been conferred upon Yahusha, which is further cementing his priesthood duties. He was initiated into the priesthood by virtue of a mikvah or baptism. So now we have a situation where a Levitical priest is immersing a man from the lineage of Judah into a priesthood. This is why baptism is important. It's because it is a rite of passage. It is a mikvah, right? And the community that was known to do this was the Qumran community, right? And I know y'all familiar with the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls did not just consist of manuscripts or codex of the Bible, but it also had extra biblical texts. And one of them is called the Community Rule. And there were several other manuscripts where these people, right, who were, some of them were the offshoots of the Essenes, some of them were influenced by the Essenes. But there's no way to prove that they were actually Essenes themselves, but they had similarities to the Essenes. These people created a system with Levites on how do we, listen to this, family, how do we ensure, watch this, how do we ensure a method of purification from sins when there's no temple? During the Grecian captivity, if you read the book of 1st and 2nd Maccabees, you'll get an understanding on history. There was a revolt called the Maccabean Revolt that happened against the Greeks, right? And what happened was the Israelites were able to pull the yoke off of them for at least 100 years. They ruled autonomously for at least 100 years, family. Think about that. There was an autonomous, sovereign, independent nation while in Grecian captivity. And the reason why they did not last is because of infighting. When John Hyrcanus was gathering together all the troops and he wanted to mount an attack against the Greeks, he had to find astute people to assign as priests and officers and judges over the people, and it did not matter what your background was. That means you could be a priest and not be a Levite. And the precedent for that was set by Jeroboam. Jeroboam set up priests in the northern parts of Israel because he didn't want the people to go to the south where Rehoboam and the Levites was at, because he believed that they were corrupted. So what he did was he created synagogues or mini temples in the north, and he assigned an astute person from amongst the people to be a priest over those temples, right? So now a similar situation is going on where astute people who knew Torah was chosen because of their alliance with John Hyrcanus to be a priest over the people. And during this period of time, the Levitical priesthood order was severed, and we had four factions emerge. We had Zealots, we had the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Essenes, right? So the Sadducees only subscribed to Torah, first 5 books, but from a Hellenistic point of view. And if you want to get an idea of what that is, you need to go study the writings of Philo, right? Philo was an Israelite. He was a Hellenized Israelite who only subscribed to Torah. And if you want to know what the Sadducees' worldview was, read Philo's works. On the other hand, Josephus was a zealot. Before Josephus wrote the Antiquities of the Jews and all those other works, he was fighting against the Romans via hand-to-hand combat. See, people sometimes get it twisted and think he's soft when he was out there in the field mounting attacks, guerrilla warfare on the Romans. And the only reason why he ended up in their custody is because he didn't get a chance to kill himself before they got him. He surrendered because they already was closing and he didn't get a chance to kill himself. So he decided, man, you know what? I have to find a way to survive, right? And to ensure that our records are not lost. So he made a compromise under the Flavian dynasty and decided to become a historian for hire. So he was given all of this bestowment because they were intrigued. The Romans were intrigued because they wanted to know more about these rebels and their history and what inspires them to fight against us. So Josephus agreed to write the history or the Antiquities of the Jews to give them some insight as to who these people are, because the Romans were still kind of confused about these people. All right. So I'm saying that to say these four factions spread out. The Essenes said, listen, these Sadducees who believe in Torah, but they don't believe in the resurrection, believe in Torah, they're Hellenized. Most of the Sadducees was on the upper echelons of society because they was always in bed with the Greeks, always doing deals with the Greeks. The Pharisees, on the other hand, were astute men and Levite priests who were against the oppressor, and they subscribed to all of the Tanakh, and they was against Hellenism and anything that compromised Israelite thought or worldview. The Zealots didn't care about none of that. They just wanted to kill some Romans and some Greeks and reestablish the physical kingdom. They didn't care about none of that. Remember, Josephus was a Pharisee and a Zealot. And then the Essenes is like, yo, all y'all Negroes is crazy. We're going to go right here where these caves is at, and we're going to separate ourselves because all of y'all are corrupt. And what they did was they inspired successive communities that came after them that lived around the Qumran caves, right? And these communities that lived upon the caves, they were separate from Jerusalem. They never trekked to Jerusalem because they felt the temple was corrupt and they didn't want to be unclean. So they said we have to create a system where we can initiate priests and we can have a system of purification of sins. And you know what they believed? They believed that there was a high priest after the Order of Melchizedek that was in the heavenly realm that was purging their sins. Wow. Go get Dead Sea Scrolls 11Q13. 11Q13. Write that down. Go look that up and also look up the War of the Messiah. 2 scrolls, the Melchizedek scroll and the War of Messiah scroll. I want you to go back, researchers, read this. These scrolls are pivotal because what they do is they set the stage for the Berit Hadashah. The stuff that's taught in the New Testament is nothing new. Anybody that says the New Testament is a construction of Greeks, they don't understand a lot of things. They don't know history. They don't know language because you cannot. Why would the Greeks create a text and use loan words when the text is purely from their culture? Why would they use loan words? That's like me telling a story about America, but I'm using all these Spanish loan words. Doesn't make any sense. So the text itself is not a product of Greeks. It is impossible for it to be a product of Greeks because there are so many copies of it, and they all differ. There's no way that one family, the Flavian dynasty, there's no way one family could have created all those manuscripts. It was found in various areas, and when you go through the science of paleography, you can tell that different scribes wrote it with different levels of education, and all those levels of education was not astute. So how could one family create the New Testament when there's thousands, you know how many thousands of manuscripts there are of the New Testament that was found all over, not just where the Flavians ruled, but all over? There's no way in the world that one person could control all those documents. Anybody that makes that claim to you, number one, does not know anything about academic scholarship because academia doesn't even argue that. Nobody in academia says that, except for people in the conscious community and folk in the Hebrew Israelite community. I mean, they have not done the research. But a lot of the beliefs, for example, Melchizedek, we find the Melchizedek scroll amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls, where they say that there was a priest after the order of Melchizedek that's coming back. What? He's coming back? What do you mean he's coming back? Read that for yourself, family. It will blow your mind. They set the stage for the New Testament writers. So if John is in the wilderness near Jordan, crying out aloud, he was influenced by the Qumran community because that's exactly what they did. The difference is the Qumran community was more esoteric, but John took that information and that system and made it exoteric. He brought the cry out to the public, whereas the Qumran community kept it within their small community. Wow. But he understood baptism was a rite of passage to initiate these people to receive this Hamashiach that's coming. But they can only receive him if they're under the tutelage of his priesthood. So this is why he said, I need to be baptized. You don't understand. You have to confer this priesthood onto me to verify that I'm holding this office. And now I can go and work the work of atonement as a priest. Before that, we don't see nothing about iniquity, priests, forgiven sin. None of that happens until he's initiated into the priesthood, because now as a priest, I can do this. And you know who was not there when this process happened? The Pharisees. They didn't see the heavens open up and the Spirit descending on him and a voice coming out. They didn't witness none of that. They didn't understand what was going on. They didn't know none of that, right? They didn't understand because the Pharisees was not in connection with the Qumran community. They were separate and they were at odds with one another. So the Pharisees would not have known about the system that they created where you can induct a priest, right, who is not even a Levite, induct them into the system, and he can do two duties there and within that community, priestly duties within that community. John was operating in that capacity. He gave a mikvah to Yahusha and inducted him into the priesthood, thereby solidifying his office, hence why the Most High had to speak to confirm the sonship and the priesthood authority that he now has. So now if Yahusha is raised up, he can do both, the Levitical priesthood system because he's been inducted, and he can be the man to sit on the throne of David at the right hand, who's the Son of Man of the Most High. Problem solved. So I'm saying that because the stage was set that you need both a priest to redeem the people of their sins, and then you need a prince or a king to go and fight physical war. Okay, let me say that again. In the War of the Messiah text, a priest goes out first and absolves the people of spiritual captivity from Belial. Wait, where did I hear Belial at? Oh, I hear it in the New Testament. Interesting. And they redeem from the captivity of Belial, which is spiritual captivity. And once the priest redeems them, now the king comes behind them, and he goes forth, and he does what? He fights the physical enemies. That sounds similar to what the New Testament teaches. Interesting. But if we want to see a Pharisaic tradition, go to the Talmud, Babylonian Talmud, Sukkah 52a, family. I want you to read this. Sukkah 52a of the Talmud. Does anybody here read the Talmud?
No. I read some of it. Why do you, I mean, what is the Talmud?
The Mishnah, the purpose of the Mishnah, the Gemara, and the Talmud. The Talmud is a combination of the Mishnah. Mishnah was compiled in 200 CE. The Israelites had 3 wars, first, second, and third. It's called the First Jewish War, the Second Jewish War, and the Third Jewish War. The Third Jewish War was called the Bar Kokhba Revolt, and that occurred in 135 AD. And when that happened, there was a huge expulsion of Israelites. And what happened was, this is after we had Constantine come on the scene in a Christian empire. Now what happens is they kicking out all of the Jews, and you had the last Sanhedrin Council and Hillel II. This is the calendar that most Jews today use, the Hillel II, Hillel, and the numerical value, Roman numerical value 2. Look him up. Hillel II, that was the last Sanhedrin Council, and the ruling was, we're about to get kicked out this land for good. So we have to create a permutation or a mathematical formula on how to keep the calendar while we're scattered, since we're not going to be in Israel anymore. So they created a system or a method in order to determine time, reckon time, so they know how to keep the feast days, etc. But that was the last ruling from the Sanhedrin, is during the time of Hillel II, and after that, there was no more Sanhedrin rulings. So Mishnah is all those rulings that's compiled into one work. The Gemara is the commentary on those rulings. So when you look at the Talmud, it's a syntax of Mishnah and Gemara, and Mishnah is the rulings from the Sanhedrin Council, and Gemara is commentary on those rulings. Now, not at all times did the commentary only pertain to the ruling. Sometimes there would be commentary that would sidetrack and talk about other things. But the Talmud is there because, again, the commentary supplemented and complemented the Mishnah rulings, and then had additional commentary outside of that and expounded on some scriptures. If we go to, and you guys can look it up, go to the William Davidson Talmud, right? You can go to that online. It's called Sepharia. It's Sukkah chapter 52a, right? And when you read this, it talks about two messiahs. One Messiah is going to be there to atone for Israel, and the second Messiah is going to physically redeem Israel. But the Messiah who atones for Israel is put to death. And guess what his name was? Messiah Hamashiach ben Yosef. Wow. Damn. All right, family. That probably blew you all away. But look, you'll get it at midnight. So look, watch. So now we have a Talmudic reference by Pharisees that a Messiah that's a son of Yosef is going to be killed because he's the one responsible for removing what's called evil inclination. So what is the evil inclination? The evil inclination is a sin attitude or a presence, a spiritual influence that is embedded in man that causes him to do things that are wrong. Not that he is born with that nature, but there's something that is keeping his mind captive and inspiring him to sin. They're saying some Messiah has to come and remove that before Israel can have a king. Wait, family. I need y'all to follow me, because I'm not even talking about the Brit Hadashah no more. I'm giving you extra biblical sources and references that teach the same thing that we see in the Brit Hadashah. How could somebody say the Brit Hadashah is a work of the Greeks when there's nothing but Hebraic references littered all throughout the text? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. There's everything you see in there is a reference to either the Tanakh or other communities like the Pharisees and the Quran community that had influence on these individuals. Just like when we read the book of 2 Peter and the book of Jude, and they make references to the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch is found in abundance amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls because it was a work that they held in high esteem. They did not consider it canonical or equal to Tanakh, but it was complementary and supplemental to the Tanakh. It gave further insight to the Tanakh. So this was something that the New Testament authors would have been familiar with, hence why they quoted from it. They were influenced by the Quran community. Wow. Family, This is really heavy because you can make an excellent case for the purpose, will, and intention of the Brit Hadashah. Now remember, this covenant that was made, remember Yahusha said this covenant, he's talking about a covenant between him and his followers. Okay, let's rewind that. He sat down with the disciples, he ate and he drank with them. He drank blood. So this blood is the new covenant that I've shed for many. All those who partake into the priesthood order after the Order of Melchizedek, which Yahusha was the high priest of, they entered into a covenant because he was martyred. You know what a martyr is? Somebody that is doing a deed that they believe to be righteous and know they're going to be killed for it. But they do the work anyway, and they willingly give their life. He was a martyr. So through the shedding of his blood, the purpose and intent of it was to regather the nation of Israel through the Order of Melchizedek, which will be the disciples who will follow after Yahusha bring his message to redeem the house of Israel. And that is the promise he made to them, because he said after he resurrected, I will be with you always, even unto the end of the earth, or the age. I will be with you always. He made a covenant with his disciples, and he made a thanksgiving offering with them, which is a grain offering. Wow. With his disciples. That was the covenant he made, a new covenant, and it was confirmed by the Most High Yah, because he was using him to regather Israel. That has to happen first. The regathering has to happen before you have an establishment of a kingdom. Wow. But before the Most High can move, the remnant has to be awoken through the Order of Melchizedek. And the Order of Melchizedek gets their orders from, guess what, the Brit Hadashah, or Yahusha himself, being that he's the high priest. So anybody who sins, you have to appeal to the high priest, so that way you could be atoned for, because once the temple is destroyed, there's no more Yom Kippur. You don't have Yom Kippur anymore because there's no temple. So how are you being atoned once a year? Yahusha is the high priest. So you can come to the Father but by him. If I was in Israel when Israel was independent and I sinned, and the sin required sacrifice, because not all sins require sacrifice, family, and I sinned, I had to repent or turn from it to shubah, which means to turn from it, but then I got to give an offering. You can't just simply repent. You have to give an offering. He said, a priest will continuously be before me presenting offerings. A king will continuously sit on the throne of David. That means somebody's going to sit on his throne, and somebody's going to be a priest before the Most High. Yahusha and his disciples, the ones who authored the New Testament, they believed him to be that person, and they created their case for it. Hence why we have the Brit Hadashah. He made a new covenant with them, that if they kept this covenant, they will receive the promises that the Most High stated in the Tanakh. See, this is what people who are Tanakh only, they miss this. They don't know what the Brit Hadashah was. He made it clear when he said in Matthew chapter 26, he said, drink of this cup. This is the blood which is shed for many. I have to be martyred so this message can get to the four corners of the earth through you. But I have to be dead first for it to happen. I cannot be here. But you're not going to be alone. I'm going to send the Ruach HaKodesh, and the purpose of the Ruach HaKodesh is Ezekiel chapter 11, verse 19 and 20. It's going to write the law on your hearts and cause you to keep Torah without physically having to have it in front of you at all times. We ought to read the Torah, but it's hard to memorize everything unless the Ruach is there to engrave it on your heart. So you can't be a Christian following after Christ if the Ruach's purpose is to cause you to walk in the statutes, laws, and commandments of the Most High. How you got the set-apart spirit, but you're not keeping the Torah? How does that work? That's the purpose of Torah. You don't believe me? Go to Yochanan chapter 3. I'm going to show you something. Go to Yochanan chapter 3. Go to Yochanan chapter 3. John chapter 3. I'm going to show y'all something. And a lot of y'all are familiar with this text, right? But I'm going to give y'all a nice little angle to look at it now. I'm going to read it. Now there was a man of the Pharisees, keep that in mind, named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews, or Yahudim. This man came to Yahusha by night and said to him, Rabbi, we know that you have come from Elohim as a teacher. That's very important because among the Quran community, the person that led the community was called the teacher of righteousness. He was the head of the Quran community. It says, for no one can do these signs, and again, his signs that he was doing, he was put to death for doing these signs, unless Elohim is with him. Yahusha answered and said to him, because remember, Yahusha, sometimes he never answered a question directly because people would only show their intentions, but he will address the motive. A lot of times motive is hidden and we only see the intentions. He always addressed the motive and not the intentions. So the motive is, Nicodemus is trying to figure out, how can I enter or get this authority, this power, just like this guy? But what he's doing is he's flattering him. Yahusha didn't care about flatter. He didn't come for that. So he went strictly to the heart of the matter and said, truly I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of Elohim. Nicodemus said to him, remember family, Nicodemus is a Pharisee. It's going to make sense when we get to the right verse. How can a man be born when he's old? He cannot enter a second time his mother's womb and be born. Can he? Yahusha answered, truly, truly I say to you, watch this family, unless one is born of water and spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of Elohim. That which is born of flesh is flesh, that which is born of spirit is spirit. Do not be amazed that I said to you, you must be born again. The wind blows where it wishes, and you hear the sound of it. Remember, the word for spirit in Greek is pneuma. And this is what we get in medical terms. When you get pneumonia, that has to do with an ailment of the lungs or breathing or air. Pneuma, wind. Ruach also means wind. And the spirit is likened unto the wind. And he goes to explain, the wind or the ruach blows where it wishes and you hear the sound of it. It's the same word there, but used to mean have a different connotation. But do not know where it comes from and where it's going. So it's everyone who was born of the ruach. Now what, family? Pay attention to this. Verse 9, Nicodemus says to him, how can this be, man? What is it that you're talking about, my man? Watch what Yahusha said. Yahusha answered him and said, are you the teacher of Israel and do not understand these things? Let's slow down. He expected Nicodemus, being a Pharisee, to understand what he's talking about in regards to being born again. How can that be possible, family, unless there is a reference in the Tanakh about this? Okay, let me say this again. How can he be mind you, there was no Brit Hadashah written at that time. So Yahusha saying, yo, bro, you a teacher in Israel. You a Reb. You're great. Rabbi means great one. You're a Reb in Israel. You're a teacher. Right? You're a Moreh. How don't you know this thing, man? So Christians, when they use this, born again, they got to show you in Torah because Yahusha expected this man to know. Can we find a reference to spirit and water in the Tanakh? Yes, we sure can, family. And when we find it, we're going to see why this is important. Remember I told you about the mikvah? What's the mikvah again? What did I tell you about the mikvah?
Baptizing into the priesthood.
There you go. It's a ceremonial washing or cleansing that represents initiation or a rite of passage. And you have to perform it before you can do any priestly duties. So you can still be called to the Most High. The Most High can still redeem you and everything in the end, but some of us may not be submerged into the order of Melchizedek. Some of us are, some of us aren't. So that's another question. People say, oh, if I'm baptized, does that mean I'm going to be saved? No, it just means that you're not going to have the title of priest under the order of Melchizedek. You're going to have a separate role. But those who are initiated properly, they have a particular duty that has been delegated to them, and they directly receive instructions from Yahusha, and they're led by Yahusha by way of the Ruach HaKodesh. But let's address this spirit and water, this water and spirit and water. Let's get Ezekiel. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 36. Ezekiel 36, starting at verse 25. 25 to 27. Actually, 25 to 28. Anybody can read that. This is how you're born again.
You said Ezekiel 36:25? You said Ezekiel 36:25?
That's correct,
Yeah.
Maki.
I'll read. I got to highlight it. You said 25 to what again? What verse? 36?
Yes,
It says,
Ezekiel 6:25. You can read it.
Verse 25, then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be cleansed. From all of your filthiness and from all your idols will I cleanse you. And a new heart will...
Slow down, sis. Then I will sprinkle you clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all filthiness and sprinkle clean water on you, filthiness and from all your idols. The Israelites went astray after other idols. Baptism, when you're sprinkled with this water, and that term sprinkle with water doesn't literally mean just like what the Catholic Church does. It's just representative of being ceremonially clean by water. That's pretty much what that idiom is expressing to us. I'm going to use water as a symbol of cleanliness because I'm setting you apart from the idols, and I'm going to follow that procedure up with the Ruach. Read the next verse.
A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will take away the...
Slow down. That new heart is what Moshe was talking about in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 16, when he says, circumcise the foreskin of your heart, meaning that your heart has to be ruled by the Ruach. Otherwise, you're not going to keep the statutes, laws, and commandments. But let's keep reading, family. I want to see what born again is, and let's see if Christians meet this criteria. Keep reading, family.
Okay. It says, a new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh. And I will give you a heart, and I will give you an heart of flesh.
Now read 27 slow. You got to read it slow so you can absorb it. Go ahead.
And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes.
Wait. To cause you to do what? What is it going to cause you to
walk
do?
in my statutes.
And what else?
And ye shall keep my judgments and do them.
Whoa, wait. Slow down. He's going to give us this new spirit. And this spirit that he's going to give us that is preceded by the water ceremony is going to cause you to keep the statutes and the judgments of the Most High. That's the purpose of the spirit. How are you a Christian and you got the spirit, but you're not keeping the statutes of the Most High? Where's that at? Where's that coming from? Remember, Nicodemus was a Pharisee. He knew the law, but he didn't pay attention to this part. Yahusha was like, damn, man, aren't you a teacher? How you don't know this thing? How you don't know this thing and you a teacher? It's written in the law. How you don't know this thing? Let's go back to John chapter 3. You see, the teachers, everything Yahusha was saying, he was expecting them to know. It was no secret. Their hearts were just callous because they're looking at this man who is unlearned, who's doing all these miracles and teaching all these wondrous things, and they could not find fault with him. Do you know why they had to try him? Meaning that they kept trying to trick him, because he had to be the example of the one who's able to keep Torah without any fault. An allusion is made to him and the Passover lamb. Key word, allusion. That's a literary device. An allusion is made to him and the Passover lamb. Before you can sacrifice the Passover lamb, it has to be without spot and without blemish. It has to be examined thoroughly. And it has to perform. It has to walk well. It can't limp. It can't cough. It can't be sick. It has to meet a criteria. Yahusha was inspected by the Pharisees for a long time because they was trying to catch him not keeping Torah. When he was able to keep Torah after being inspected, he was without spot and without blemish. Hence why they had no reason to kill him. They had to conspire to do it. Okay. All right, family. I just want to hope that you're with us. Let's go to John chapter 3. Read after verse 10.
John chapter 3, verse 10.
Mm-hmm.
It says, and Yahusha answered and said unto him, Art thou a master of Israel, and knowest not these things?
I don't know this, man. You read it tonight. Okay. Go ahead.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, we speak that we do know, and testify that we have seen, and ye receive not our witness.
Hey, I'm telling you, I'm sorry, sis. He's saying, I'm telling you by my teachings. We're trying to explain these things to you because we testify what was revealed to us, what was shown to us. And because it was revealed and shown, we are giving this information to you, but you don't want this testimony. You know why? Because we're not Pharisees like you, right? We're not all Levites like you. We're not elitists like you. We're not rich like you guys. That's why you're not accepting the testimony. Keep going.
And I have told you earthly things, and you believe not. How shall you believe if I tell you of the heavenly things? And Moses lifted up the serpent. Am I in the right place? Yeah. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. That whosoever believeth in him shall not perish.
Slow down. Slow down, sis. As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. Now, some people say this was about his crucifixion. I say it's ambiguous, which means that it can apply to that, or it can apply to the situation when the Israelites are brought into the wilderness. There's going to be a wilderness wandering before the end times consummate. And the only way these Israelites are going to be redeemed from persecution is when Yahusha, or the Son of Man, whoever this is, returns and they're looking up. So when he has been lifted up, or when his name, personage, character, what he stood for, is actually raised up in great authority. Lifted up means in great authority. Moses had to raise up the brazen serpent so that way the people who looked they looked up at it. They had been redeemed. Remember when we go to Matthew chapter 24, when he's telling him the Son of Man is going to appear like lightning in the sky? He says, look up, for your redemption draws nigh. He says, look up, for your redemption draws nigh. And in Matthew chapter 24, he's talking about the end of days, and he's talking about the persecution that the saints will go through in the wilderness wandering. When he says, when you see this and this happening, go run for the hills, go out to the wilderness. But then I'm going to come and I'm going to redeem you. But you got to look up, and you're going to see me come. I'm going to be lifted up, and you're going to know that your redemption is nigh. Just like the children of Israel in the wilderness was redeemed by the brazen serpent by looking up, so will we when we're in the wilderness, when Yahusha returns and we look up at him. He has now been lifted up, because now we can acknowledge his authority. He's coming back with power, and now he's going to redeem us. Okay, so go ahead, verse 15.
1 second. That whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For Yah so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him.
Wait, slow down. And you know Christians twist this up, and being that we're Israelites, this is like one of the first scriptures that we exegete, or that we extract within its context the motive for the author writing to the audience. So remember, keep in mind, who is Yahusha speaking to?
Is he talking
right here?
The Jews. He's speaking to Nicodemus.
No. Who is he speaking to right here? He's talking to somebody. There you go. Wait, who said that? Say it again.
He's talking to Nicodemus.
He's talking to Nicodemus. There's nobody else there with them. Nicodemus came to him at night, creeping, because he didn't want the other Pharisees to see him, because then they would shun him. He would be persecuted. He crept that night, and he went to him to speak to him. Yahusha is not talking to a whole bunch of people. He's not even talking to Gentiles. He's talking to one priest. He's talking to a Pharisees. Wow, family. See, when you do hermeneutics, right? Hermeneutics is a system that Christians use, but they use it. They don't use it properly because they look at the text from the lens of the church fathers, the lens of Paul. Church fathers and Paul is how they see the rest of the Bible. I don't know nobody else that reads any book from the back to the front, but for some reason that's how they do reverse hermeneutics. We do it from the front to the back. So as an Israelite, your foundation has to be Torah. So anytime you interpret anything in the text that seems to be difficult, you must go back to Torah to get an understanding of what is taking place. You have to get this. So remember, in Exodus chapter 19, verse 6, Yahusha says, I'm going to make you a kingdom of priests. Well, wait a second. How are you going to make all the children of Israel a kingdom of priests when we already have the Levites? Unless you're prophetically saying something that's going to happen to the Levites, whereby which all the children of Israel who are scattered has to be priests. Now we're talking about the Melchizedek order, because now those who are initiated into the rites of passage of the order of Melchizedek by virtue and way of Yahusha HaMashiach, now they can be sent to the four corners of the earth. Remember he said, go into all nations, teach them. Yeah, go to those nations, because you got to teach those nations to redeem the lost tribes of Israel that's amongst those nations. You have to do that. It's important. So now he says, what? Elohim so loved the world there is cosmos, and we know we don't translate it to mean everybody, because it doesn't mean that. It means a specific order of something, because that's all cosmos means, something that is arranged and ordered. The writers of the Tanakh believed that the heavenly realm was ordered. They didn't believe in any kind of randomness. They believed that everything that we see in the heavenly realm that's there for signs, for seasons, etc., was all established by the Most High. They all have their ordinance on when to rise, when to circulate, when to go here, when to go there. They all have a divine decree to rule and operate. So they've seen it as a ordered arrangement of something. That's why the word cosmetic just means the way you arranged makeup on your face, how you beautify your face. There's a particular method to doing it. You don't just slap on makeup. There's a way that you particularly apply the makeup in a particular order, in a particular way, so that is uniform and it conveys an image. So he's talking to a Pharisees saying Elohim loved an order, a specific order that he gave his son, that whoever believes in the son shall not perish but have everlasting life. Because now once you're in the order of the priesthood, you're guaranteed everlasting life, because you've been initiated by following after the high priest of that order. So when you believe in his name, and again, I'm not going to touch on it now, but when the believing in his name thing and the remission of sins has to do with the Israelites that killed Yahusha. They committed a treasonous act of capital offense. They killed an innocent man in cold blood. That means that all those people who did it, they had to be put to death. So when they killed Yahusha, it was in the Passover, the eve or the civil twilight hours during the Passover, and they submerged him during unleavened bread, had to get him down before unleavened bread, because unleavened bread is a Sabbath, and he rose 3 days later, Yanim, which means days later, which means he rose on the Shabbat. But nobody could go to the tomb on the Shabbat, because the Shabbat is a set-apart day. Nobody can run to no tomb in no Shabbat. You got to wait till Sunday, the next day. That's when they found out he wasn't there. If they would have went on a Shabbat, he wouldn't have been there either, but they kept the law. It can't be by no dead corpse, nobody during Shabbat. It's a set-apart day. You can't do that. So Yahusha, the Most High, used him or set him apart because the priesthood order is designed to get the remnant of Israel to pronounce the coming kingdom to the nations, that whoever's in the remnant of Israel, he's going to protect. He's going to preserve, right? And there's going to be Israelites who are not part of that order. Does that mean that those who do not accept that order are going to be perished? Some of them will, and some of them won't. There's going to be brothers and sisters who do not accept Yahusha that will be preserved and will be redeemed. When he returns, they're going to be all right. So you don't have to be following after Yahusha to be redeemed in the end times. The difference is when you choose to do it now, there's rewards and benefits that the people who don't choose it are not going to get. There are crowns that you're going to get that they're just not going to get. So when you respond to the invocation or call to order, you are going to get a benevolence bestowed upon you that other people in the nation of Israel are not going to have. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to understand this concept when we read prophecy to know that some other Israelites who are not adherent to Yahusha will be redeemed when he returns. They're going to be redeemed. But the ones who choose to follow now, we have a specific mission, a specific goal, specific power and authority that no other Israelite will have, because we are walking according to a particular path after an order of a priesthood, an ancient priesthood that continuously was running throughout history. And because of such, he's going to use us to redeem the rest of Israel and to also pronounce judgment onto the nations. He's going to use that line. Because now, when we repent, guess what? In the name of Yahusha, now he works his atonement duties, and he can atone for us. When we want authority, we pray according to his name for authority and atonement. We don't need him anything else. We don't need him for nothing else. You don't need to invoke him for something that was not his role to do. He's there for authority and atonement purposes, priesthood and kingship. If your prayer has nothing to do with kingship or priesthood, you don't need to invoke his name. His name is only there because you're acknowledging the high priest that if you need the authority as the king, he can give it to you on the throne of David. And as the priest, he can extend to you forgiveness of sins because he's going to do the act, the sacrificial act in the heavenly sanctuary on your behalf. So we're invoking him for these two elements. Everything else goes to the Most High. All prayers go to the Most High. The only ones that get sealed in the Son's name if it deals with authority and atonement. When we need his authority against sickness, against spiritual powers, against different things of that nature, speaking against other kings and rulers, we need his authority, right? If we need to atone for sin or be an intermediary on behalf of somebody else who has sinned, which we are able to do, we invoke his name because in his name, he's doing the high priest work for us. We're initiating the process. He's consuming or completing it in the heavenly sanctuary. So this is why we use his name in those instances, because he's been delegated authority and power of atonement, right? So remember, he's saying this order is he given the Son to this order that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life, because all their sins will be atoned for. So when it comes time for the judgment, they're safe. Okay. Guys, somebody was saying something?
Yeah, okay. So what, now you say we need him for atonement? So if we want to, repent or something, if we do something like that? Like what instances did you say we should?
Yeah, because we if we sin, right, and now mind you, there's more than 613 statutes and commandments, but out of all the statute laws and commandments, all of them did not require sacrifice. And I want to make sure my Messianic brothers and sisters understand this. Every sin did not require a sacrifice. And some sins, no sacrifice, no separation, no level of cleanliness can save you. You got to be put to death. So there are going to be some trespasses that we do. We're going to break some statutes, right? But those statutes that we break, all of them does not require an offering. But the ones that do, he will complete that task for us because he's in the heavenly realm working the heavenly sanctuary. This is what we see in the book of Hebrews. He works the heavenly sanctuary on our behalf. So he's atoning for us. So when we commit that sin and it's made known to us, then we pray to the Most High and we seal it to Yahusha, because now it's symbolic of us going to the priest and giving an offering, right? We give the offering to Yahusha after we repent, and he commences the act in the heavenly sanctuary on our behalf. So our sins that require offerings are atoned for. Authority, in Luke chapter 10, he sent them out, and he says, I want you to go in my name, cast out these spirits, heal the sick, and preach the gospel of the kingdom. Why did they have to cast out spirits? Because in the kingdom, there's not going to be no spirits in the kingdom. Why did they have to heal the sick? Because in the kingdom, ain't nobody going to be sick. See, he was giving them a taste of what's to come. Wow. That's why they had to go and confirm it, because anybody can do some magic trick and bewitch somebody. But the purpose of them doing these things is to give the people a temporary understanding and experience of what is to come. That's why he had to major in healings. Because in the kingdom message that we're telling you about, there ain't nobody sick in there. In the kingdom message we're telling you about, ain't no spirits in there. All of these things are not going to be in the kingdom, hence why he gave them authority to do these things, so it can be a demonstration of the message that they're proclaiming. So, being that we fight against spiritual wickedness in high places each and every day, his name is used, so when we identify these attacks, we can use his name because now there's jurisdiction. When we walk, when he says the spirit, the kingdom of Elohim is amongst you, we are the walking objects of the manifestation of the kingdom that's to come. Meaning that there are boundaries that spiritual entities cannot cross unless they have permission. And this precedent was set with Job. Job was covered. He had those boundaries around him, and Hashatan couldn't touch him. Right? He had to get permission. So we understand that if we are under a personal attack spiritually, and we identify, because all attacks is not spiritual, we identify that this attack is spiritual, then we invoke the name of Yahusha because he has given us authority over these spiritual entities, and they have to understand that you're not in your proper jurisdiction. You're standing in the jurisdiction because I'm a diplomat. I represent this kingdom. And wherever I go, I bring the power and authority of this kingdom with me. You have no jurisdiction in this realm. So we use his name to assert our jurisdiction over the spiritual realm. Why? Because Yahusha is the bailiff who is enacting order in the heavenly realm, and these entities that are in the heavenly realm has influences on the earthly realm, but because he was elevated above them, we are appealing to the federal, not the state level, which these spirits are, but the federal level, and being that he gives a edict coming down from the federal level, now they have to back off. Now they got to step back. But if we don't invoke him, they can continuously attack us because we can't come in our own name because he didn't even come in his own name. What power are you on your own self? So this is the authority aspect that he has bestowed upon us. So that way we could be a witness in this earth. That's why me personally, I've undertaken naturopathic ways to heal people, right? Now it can be done supernaturally through touch, but I've also taken the idea of healing because if I'm able or capable of holistically and naturopathically restoring somebody who is ill, it will be my testimony to them of what they can experience when they get into this kingdom. Right? So it's a way of holistically addressing it using a principle that's been established in the text. And that way you make it real. Right? It's living. Right? It's a test. Remember he said, these works that we do is a testimony of what? Of the kingdom that's to come. That's the only reason why I can do these things, is I'm testifying of this kingdom. I'm giving you parables about the kingdom. I'm trying to teach you and prepare you for this kingdom. And I'm not speaking of my own authority. I come in authority of the Most High, but everything that I'm saying to you is based on Torah. It's based on the Tanakh. He has not deviated away from the Tanakh. He has not. All these principles can be found in the Tanakh if we know where to look. And that's my desire. I want to empower my Messianic brothers and sisters, or Mishkaka, or family, to be able to be very adept at the Tanakh so you can convey your case for Yahusha using purely the Tanakh. When we look at the Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ketubim, the instructions, the prophets, and the writings, everything that we see in the Brit Hadashah has its sole root in the Tanakh. And if it's not in the Tanakh, it can be found amongst the Quran community by means of the Dead Sea Scrolls, or it can even be found amongst some of the Pharisaic works in the Talmud. All of these concepts are there if you know where to look, and if you can establish all these concepts that the Brit Hadashah is putting forth from Israelite sources, how can they argue with that? The last thing I want to say is the reason why I am a certified, what they call Messianic, I don't even like that term, but the reason why I'm certified as looking at Yahusha as the teacher of righteousness, looking at him as a rabbi, as a moreh, as a redeemer, it's because I study history. And what I learned in history is that there were 3 factions. See, people don't teach us this history, but I'm going to give y'all something to go research. There were 3 factions. There were the so-called Yahudim, or the Jews. There was the so-called Christians, and we're talking about after the 1st century CE. So we're talking about 2nd century CE, 3rd century, 4th century. First faction was the Yahudim, or the Jews, and none of them believed that a person was the Redeemer. They were still awaiting for this branch from David to come. You had the Christians who rejected the Torah, right? Interesting enough, they only kept the 10 Commandments, and all the teaching of Yahusha, like, is not based on a Tanakh. And the Christians, but then you had the third group, which is what they call the Messianic Israelites. And this third group, which was called in history by their opponents, they were called Jewish Christians, which is a misnomer. That's not what they were, but that's what they were titled by their oppressors. Did you know that group had the truth? You know why they had the truth? It's because it was a coordinated, systematic, strategic warfare on this group by both the Yahudim and the Christians. They systematically wiped this third group out of the pages and annals of history because they got it right. Oh, man. Family, what I want you to do is look up Jewish Christianity and what happened to Jewish Christianity. And what I can probably do next time we talk is give you, because I have like several books on it. They're not in front of me right now, but books on it that explains all of this to the T. But if you want to look up one specific group that represents this community, because there were several sects in this community, look up the Ebionites. The Ebionites is very key because they stamped these dudes out from history. They talk so vile of them and stamped them out of history because they got it right. What did they get right? They kept Torah and they acknowledged who Yahusha was. See? That's how they got it right. So I'm saying to myself, damn, the Yahudim, the Christians are still here today, but this third group has been eliminated. They've been wiped out. And the problem is a lot of us Messianic Israelites have not studied that history. So sometimes we may fall under the category of either Christians or Yahudim. But if you really want to go back to the root of these people who actually carried the real teachings of Yahusha, that he kept the law. They taught that he was justified by keeping the law.